It is March of 2025. The Roman spring begins to awaken timidly, but in my body, I still feel the cold of winter. I find myself tired, more than usual. I notice that I breathe with slightly more difficulty. A slight but constant tightness in my chest has subtly set in, as if each breath requires more effort. During the Sunday prayer in St. Peter's Square, my voice loses its usual strength, and a persistent coughing fit interrupts my speech. Something is not right in my lungs. Pneumonia almost always begins silently, disguised as a cold or perhaps suddenly as fatigue. The hour of death is perhaps the second most important in our life, another gift that God grants us in His infinite grace, an hour to remember what we achieved in this earthly plane. I will take the opportunity to narrate what happened in my body, the grace of God present even in illness, how beautiful, complex, and perfect our body is, even in its final moments. A couple of weeks ago, the pneumococcal bacteria entered my respiratory tract. This old and cheerful Argentinian doesn't have the same immune system as he did in his 20s. Weakened by my old age and previous ailments, my immune system is not fast enough to eliminate this usually harmless microscopic threat. For this reason, the bacteria make their way to my pulmonary alveoli, small structures that look like tiny clusters of grapes. Beautiful structures where my body exchanges oxygen and carbon dioxide when I breathe. That's where their silent invasion begins. They multiply quickly, triggering an immediate inflammatory response. The blood vessels around my alveoli dilate, allowing immune cells and inflammatory fluid to penetrate the lung tissue. My alveoli, once delicate air sacs, start to fill with this inflammatory fluid. They can no longer exchange oxygen well, and fatigue begins to set in. That's why I feel like I'm struggling to breathe, as if my lungs, which are normally light like an air balloon, are now soaked in water, heavy when I expand my chest. The following days are even more difficult. The fatigue intensifies. The initially dry cough now produces thick, greenish and dense secretions, a clear sign of bacterial infection in full progression. I begin to experience fever episodes, chills and chest pain that worsens when taking deep breaths. My doctors decide to hospitalize me to monitor me closely. My admission becomes global news, but my mind is at peace. Upon entering the Gemelli Polyclinic in Rome, my vital signs reveal what was expected. Diminished oxygen saturation, increased respiratory rate, and a chest X-ray confirms bilateral pneumonia. Both lungs filled with fluid. The healthcare staff are friendly, but they need to connect me to an oxygen supplement through a nasal cannula, thus increasing the amount of oxygen reaching my tissues. They place an intravenous line to administer medication quickly and effectively. The medical fight against pneumonia is a race against time. The first therapeutic choice is crucial, a strong, broad-spectrum antibiotic. Considering my age, immune condition, and clinical characteristics, my doctors likely choose intravenous ceftriaxone combined with azithromycin, a common therapeutic strategy in older patients with community-acquired pneumonia. Ceftriaxone is an antibiotic belonging to the third-generation cephalosporins. Its bactericidal action is strong. It destroys the bacterial cell wall, preventing it from multiplying and repairing itself, leading to its immediate death. The bacteria try to resist, but this molecule manages to penetrate its defenses, dramatically weakening it. Antibiotics, a true miracle of science, allowed by God. Azithromycin, on the other hand, belongs to the macrolide family. Basically, it leaves the bacteria without the ability to produce proteins vital for its survival. By combining both antibiotics, the bacteria is attacked from two different angles, maximizing effectiveness. Even so, using one of the greatest miracles allowed by God, His grace was not on this occasion to free my lungs from illness. He was calling me to be by His side. My lungs are getting better, but the inflammatory fluid doesn't disappear immediately. It takes days, even weeks, to be fully reabsorbed. While my Catholic Church celebrates Holy Week, my own body is experiencing a parallel passion. The days pass slowly between medications, supplemental oxygen, and respiratory therapies. The doctors encourage me to perform lung exercises, deep-assisted breaths to mobilize secretions and promote alveolar ventilation. Going through this illness during Holy Week is deeply symbolic for me. I feel how my body goes through its own way of the cross. Each breathing difficulty seems like another station. Every tough night is my personal Garden of Gethsemane, but I keep the faith. I know that behind this struggle lies the possibility of a resurrection, a slow but possible recovery, even in the kingdom of heaven, alongside the Holy Father. My vital signs start to improve slowly thanks to the intensive treatment. The fever goes away, the cough lessens, and I breathe with less difficulty. The doctors, confident in my positive progress, decide to discharge me with clear recommendations: complete rest, close monitoring, and immediate attention if symptoms return. But pneumonia in older people like me, it is never a battle entirely won. Despite being discharged from the hospital, the lungs are still in the process of healing. Some bacteria can persist in poorly ventilated areas of the lung, waiting for an opportunity to grow again. At my house in the Vatican, I continue with respiratory therapies, trying to slowly resume my daily activities. But something tells me, in the quiet of my night prayer, that my body is still silently fighting against this microscopic enemy. It has been just 2 weeks since I left the hospital. The walls of my room in Casa Santa Marta no longer seemed so warm. I was sleeping more than usual. I felt cold, despite the Roman sun coming through the window. The fatigue returned, stealthy like Judas at night, not with the crash of a relapse, but with the slowness of decline. My doctors visited me daily, listened to my chest, placed the stethoscope gently, while searching for those characteristic sounds, crackles, that wet crunch that reveals the collapse of small fluid-filled alveoli. They asked me if I could walk easily, and I smiled, but inside I felt how each step became shorter. My alveoli were still inflamed, some probably scarred. The mucociliary system, that microscopic conveyor belt that sweeps pathogens and secretions out of the lungs, no longer worked as in my youth. The cough became weaker, and when a patient loses the ability to clear their own lungs, the infection can return, even without external exposure. A few days before my death, the fever returned. I could no longer stand without help. My breathing quickened. The supplemental oxygen was no longer enough to keep my saturation at safe levels. Acute respiratory failure had started. When the lungs fail, the whole body goes into crisis. Without enough oxygen, the heart has to work harder to compensate. The kidneys, which were already somewhat compromised, start to fail. What doctors refer to as multiple organ dysfunction syndrome appears. In the early morning of April 21st, my breathing became shallow. The carbon dioxide level in my blood increased. Hypercapnia, which causes drowsiness, confusion, and finally, unconsciousness. My heart, subjected to weeks of struggle, finally could take no more. From a medical standpoint, it is most likely that I died from a combination of respiratory failure and hypoxemia, septic shock, and multi-organ failure. A known sequence, feared and sadly common in older adults facing severe pneumonia. In my farewell, I leave behind a body that in its fragility showed the biological reality of aging, the infinite grace of God, and the reminder that even for me, the visit to this world is temporary. Take advantage and take care of yours. A hug. I invite you to join my group of patients on tuvisalud.com, a platform like Facebook, but for health. There you will receive support from people who are going through the same situation as you. And I publish articles on these topics every day at no cost. Join. It's free and can save your life. Don't forget to subscribe and comment. A hug. See you in the next video.